South Africans across the board have been feeling the blunt force of the increased cost of living. Petrol prices keep going up, which in turn increases the price of food and other consumer goods. An interest rate hike yesterday means people will be paying more on their home loans, and servicing debt will also be more expensive. So it's only natural that when we hear of any proposed increase, we balk. Even more so when it's from Eskom, who are officially in everybody's bad books for their inability to provide a steady supply of power. But how much do we really understand about the proposed splitting of the tariff into a fixed charge as well as billing per usage? Here to unpack it for us is Kay Walsh of Nova Economics. Kay, there's been a lot of confusion and unhappiness about the announcement of a split tariff. South Africans immediately after that announcement displaying their ire on many social media platforms. But we've just heard that explanation from Eskom spokesperson Sikonathi Mantshantsha, clarifying a little bit of it. Just to unpack that further, what's the basic proposal and to who does it apply?
Okay, the proposal is actually to improve the design of Eskom's tariffs, particularly its residential tariff, but also some of its general wholesale tariffs. And that's, in other words, that's making it more economically efficient. So some economists would refer to Eskom's current tariff as a distorted two-part tariff, its home power tariff in particular, because it's got an artificially low fixed charge and an artificially high energy per kilowatt hour charge. And these kind of tariffs were very commonplace across the world, not just in South Africa. And the justification for them was usually that they basically cross-subsidize low usage consumers. So if you are consuming a low amount of power per month, you're probably not actually covering the cost of your supply, and other users consuming more power will be cross-subsidizing you. And in the past, that was justifiable because, well, I'm not sure it was a good idea, but it was justified on the basis that low power consumers were also low income consumers. With the introduction of rooftop PV, solar panels, that's actually no longer the case. Your low consumption consumers can sometimes be from your affluent households. So in a way, to readjust the split between the fixed and variable component to more accurately reflect Eskom's actual cost structure is what they are proposing.
So Sikonathi Mantshantsha clarifying also there for us that if you have solar power and you have battery backup and you do not tie into Eskom's grid at all, there is no way they can charge you. It's only for those users who use solar power during the day, but during peak hours when there is no solar power to be had, or if they cannot store that power to use later at night, for instance, and they use it during peak time, then that tariff will also apply to them as well as normal Eskom customers. But the immediate assumption is from South Africans across the board, and myself as well, I had this immediate reaction, is that Eskom is trying to milk us consumers for more money. So will this tariff split and this levy, as it were, increase their income?
No, this tariff redesign will not increase their income. It will just change it will just redistribute charges between Eskom's consumers more fairly. So in fact, I think with the tariff redesign for their home power tariff, they expect to get slightly less revenue from their residential customers. And that probably means that, say, the industrial commercial customers have to pay a bit more. But whatever the change is, it's to better reflect the actual cost of supply. That said, Eskom will be applying in a separate process, I'm sure, for higher tariffs, because its average tariffs, which are the tariffs that NERSA determines and approves, are still below its actual cost of producing power.
So what our viewers want to know, for consumers paying their Eskom accounts, what are the positives for them?
So for your grid-tied solar PV consumers, the new tariff will allow them to better manage their usage. So they'll get different tariffs for different times of day. These are the customers who have smart meters installed, and they will also have a net billing tariff where they can sell surplus power to Eskom in order to recoup some of that fixed cost. For your ordinary residential customer, you're probably just going to have a similar tariff. For high energy consumers, you actually might end up paying slightly less per month. And I think from Eskom's perspective, it's also favorable because the current tariff structure leaves them quite exposed. 74% of their costs are actually fixed costs. So only 24% of their costs vary with, the usage of coal and diesel, etc. And so with them only currently recovering 10% of their fixed costs via a fixed charge, every time there's a fluctuation in power usage, it leaves them very exposed in terms of the amount of income they receive. So this will help to stabilize their revenue.
A lot of these issues can get quite complex. Just to be absolutely clear so that everyone understands, it's not a case of Eskom going to charge consumers an additional 900 odd rand, as has been reported, on top of what they're already paying. This is just splitting.
It just means that if you've got a relatively high voltage supply, which means you probably have you're on 2 or 3 phase power, it just means that you're going to be paying a higher fixed component and that your marginal cost of using electricity will decrease. So that might change some of your decisions about what energy you supplement your electricity consumption with. But yeah, it's a more accurate price signal in a way. So I think it is actually beneficial to everyone.
So here's a bigger picture question. The reality is that Eskom needs to increase capacity in order to service all South Africans and have a stable supply. But they don't have the money to do that. What's it going to take to get them to a point of stable, sustainable energy provision?
I think, this is where it becomes more controversial. But Eskom, as I mentioned earlier, essentially is not generating enough revenue via its tariff at the moment to cover the costs of producing electricity and investing in new capacity and buying additional capacity from IPPs. And we've seen a massive deterioration in its financial position over the years as NERSA has tried to keep its tariff flat, relatively flat, or in line with CPI. And this has been hugely problematic for Eskom. I'm not saying it's the only factor contributing to the current power crisis, but certainly it has been a major contributing factor. A utility whose financial position is worsening is obviously not going to be in a good position to deliver power. So I think it is important, as hard as it is to sell to South Africans at the moment, that tariffs rise to reflect the cost of producing power. Another way of putting it would be to say, what would you as South Africans be willing to pay extra in order to have no load shedding and a return to stable power supply? And I'd certainly be happy, to pay a little more, 20 or 30% more over time, if we can be assured of no costly power interruptions.
Excellent. Thank you so much for those clarifications. That was Kay Walsh of Nova Economics, giving us the lowdown on that proposed tariff split for Eskom with a fixed rate and then usage billing as per your use.